Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. And the rubber is meeting the road here. I'm joined by my partner, Brock Ellis, who's live right outside New York City. I'm located in Atlanta, down here in the dirty, dirty. All right, Brock, let's get right into it. Another day of criming uh, from the nation's capital. Did this guy go play golf again? I mean, the orange felon? Is he out on the golf course
Was
again?
he on the course?
Because,
I didn't see where he was today.
yeah,
Uh,
I wasn't sure. I just assumed that he goes home every weekend.
it's
It's not like
Friday.
he's actually working. I mean,
It's
the
the
guy
Friday.
does nothing.
But unfortunately, his team's still working.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Project
And that's the
2025 is
problem.
still working. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. All right, yesterday we talked a little bit about the success of the marches last weekend, the next march that's planned, and the fact that the African American community is just sitting this thing out. And we got around to discussing fatigue a good bit yesterday, and we were going to talk about more today about what Black America needs to hear in order to be more participatory in this effort to dispel the Mad King. And let's be rid and done with him and good riddance once and for all. And for that matter, Brock, the MAGA movement needs to go. It's not productive, it's not inclusive, um, and it sucks. It really does, because we're better than that.
We
We're
should be
better.
better. We
Well, we
should
used
be
to be.
better than that. We
Yeah.
aspire. We aspire to be better than that. I mean, there's a lot of points in American history where we've not been better than that. For the most part, though, the majority has ruled and moved us, and we bent in the arc of greater justice and becoming a better country. The MAGA movement's a big step backwards.
Huge, huge.
So, I mean, it has to be defeated outright. And as we talked about and left off like yesterday, and we're going to pick up on today, was like, our take that great. It was great to have so many white people out there on the protest. And it's great to see angry MAGA white people pissed off because they're getting screwed over. They're adding some energy to sort of the opposition movement. But like we said, the black and Latinos basically nowhere to be found at the marches, the last marches, or in really any of the much of the discussion, actually.
Right, right.
And there's been a glaring lack of messaging from the left to the black community. So
Hmm.
there's a bit of a debate. I saw a bunch of a debate online today too, basically saying, okay, Tim Walz is going out into Red America again. I know Kelly and some other people are going to, well, he's from Arizona, but he's going to be in Arizona, I think with Elizabeth Warren. They're going to be talking in some, in essence, predominantly white districts, and they're really going after this disaffected, MAGA voter and this older voter who's really afraid of Medicare and Medicaid getting cut. But no one is delivering a message to the black community, which is really the core of the Democratic Party and the most reliable voter in the party. So we're going to leave it to you is what does the black community need to hear? Because
Well,
pretty certain no one's saying it yet.
right. No, no, no one's saying anything. The black community is talking amongst themselves and rather loudly. If you check out the Native Land Pod with Andrew Gillum, Angela Rye, and Tiffany Cross, they've got some pretty astute viewpoints there. Like I said, I rely on a lot of these influencers to get a pulse of where the black community is. And quite frankly, we can't be an afterthought. So the longer it takes for someone to come to our communities and start saying, hey, not what do you need to survive? What do you need to thrive in America? Right? Because, Brock, even an hour, I had the talk with my father. I'm having the talk with my sons. My sons are going to have their sons are going to have the talk with their sons. We still have to figure out how to survive a police stop, a traffic stop, right? We have to figure out how not to get unalived from Monday to Tuesday, right? So this has to be a conversation about thriving, about lifting the Black experience in America, about moving away from the racist pillars that this country was built on. So, where does that start? Starts with the same message that Bernie has largely for the white community, right? Higher wages, better income equality, access to health care, right? Black folks are living less quality lives, living shorter lifespans because of the stress, because of the lack of wages, because of the lack of opportunity, and because of access to good health care. Mortality, the infant mortality rate and the Black community is abysmal. It's bad in America, right? It is awful in the Black community, right? Why do we have better outcomes for Black families with African American doctors than with white doctors? That's a problem. When I moved to Atlanta, I had a Brown University, Ivy League educated doctor, Ivy undergrad, Ivy grad doctor tell me to stop going to white doctors. That's in 2002. He told me that when I went in for my checkup and I showed him the medication I was taking. He says, you're on medication for high blood pressure. First of all, you're too young. Second of all, this is the wrong medication for you as an African American male in your late 30s. I was on the wrong medication. I was taking that medication for 5 years and wondering why my blood pressure wouldn't come down. And his thought was, stop going to white physicians,
Yeah, because they don't
which
pay.
never entered my mind.
Yeah,
Never
because
entered my mind.
they just don't give a shit, right? They're just half paying attention, or they don't. So, what do you want? What do you need to hear, and who do you need to hear it from?
So I need to hear. I look at this point. I'll take Bernie and AOC. Come to Harlem, right? Come to South Central, right? Come to Oak Cliff. Come to Southwest Atlanta. I, I would love to hear you come to those communities and talk about the same issues and talk about them as it relates to us as a community. Because, as I was thinking about this last night, I thought to myself, okay, higher wages and better opportunities in the financial sector, right? Healthcare, right? Access to quality education facilities and tools, right? You wouldn't believe how many schools in the hood don't have computers in
Mm-hmm.
2025, right? So with those three areas right there, we're already talking about the dismantling of the Department of Education, right? These are issues for all of us. Why can't we speak to them? Why can't AOC and Bernie and Swalwell and Raskin and Jasmine Crockett and these folks talk to our community about these issues? Let's start here, right? We don't have to kitchen sink the whole Black experience, right? Because then we can get into social justice, prison reform, reimagining policing, lending, fair housing, right? We could get into all that, but we can't do it in one night, right? We can't do it in one election cycle.
Yeah, one bite of the apple, right? But
Exactly.
I read some interesting today about how easy it is to denigrate DEI when it's an acronym versus when the actual words that are a
Are
part
you
of are used: diversity, equity, and inclusion. That it's that the words themselves are almost so logical and like so simple and seem to be so basic and
right?
standard that
Right.
they're pretty easy to digest, but the way that, but the right's really good at cutting things at the knees. So they were like cut DEI at the knees, and then they're able to make woke like a four-letter word, right? When in reality, woke should be a term of pride, right?
Right.
To be woke. Wow, I give a shit about other people. Like my eyes are open to what goes on around me, and I have like a caring about
My fellow
people,
man.
environment, my fellow man, the broader society, the broader, the environment and planet that I live on, and just the well-being of all around me. How's that get painted as a negative, right? So then they scramble to transgender, and they scramble to like things that, supposedly quote scare people or quote annoy people because it's such a hardship to call people, by the pronoun that they want to be called by.
Right.
That's such a. I remember in the 1970s when we had a teacher who asked to be called Ms. Schwartz in Lakeland Middle School. It was the first one. It was like women's lib, right? It was this
Yeah, it's huge.
mid-70s, and it was like, that was going to take down society because
Right.
she wasn't Miss or Mrs. She was going by Ms. Right?
Right.
So that was 50 years ago. So now people want to be he, she, they. Like, once again, here we are 50 years later, and it's still like a couple of words everyone's freaking out about it. You know what? Ms. didn't bring down American society, and,
Right.
he, they, and their, and them, and the pronoun that the self-identification, just to call somebody by what they want to be called by, really not that hard if you actually just give a shit about other people, right? You call them by the name that they're named, right? You have the respect to call them by the name. Well, why is it so hard? It's such a selfishness to feel like it's a burden on you to
Right.
to say something about them. So you want to hear, you're fine. You'll take the current message if it's actually just delivered in in your living room, not
In the
always from
lens.
afar. You don't always
Right.
just turn on the clip because they were in like Racine, Wisconsin, or Skokie,
Exactly.
Illinois, or Dubuque, Iowa, and there they go, and they're going into Oklahoma, to placate that angry white guy, or that they think they can scoop. I think the sense is that there's a belief that white voter votes. So if you can get them to swing, that's easier to get a voter to swing than to try to get out and someone who's apathetic and just thinks the system's against them and isn't out to vote. But to me, then you're just kind of playing into the voter suppression and just making it a smaller pool of voters and a less
Without
diverse pool of
question.
voters. So
Without question. Because, Brock, then it's left to interpretation, right? Why aren't they talking to us through the lens through which we live? Right? Why aren't you talking to us in black and white? You know about income inequality, Bernie, right? Come talk to us, the folks at the lowest rung of the ladder,
does
right?
John Ossoff do it? Does John Ossoff do it well in Georgia?
You, dude, when John Ossoff ran in that special election, he got on a live video chat with our fraternity brothers from around the state.
Okay.
Now, he was learning about our fraternity, right? We approached him. We said we wanted to support him, but because he and Warnock had developed such a close relationship, Warnock had explained to him the importance of the D9 Greek organizations because Reverend Warnock is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So he understood the power this could have. And it helped. Remember, we really went to the polls and showed up for John Ossoff and
Okay,
Reverend Warnock.
so he's doing a good job, but maybe he can maybe take that message on the road a little bit as well if he has that
Absolutely.
credibility. I'm just a little surprised that more white like politicians like don't want to do it, right? Like I
I don't
mean,
get it.
yeah, I
I don't
kind of
get it.
don't get it. So do you think that this gets back to messengers and leaders? Like, do you think we need Kamala to come back? Can Kamala talk to the 92 percenters? Can she go back to black women and re-energize them once she's re-energized? Because I would think that Kamala wants to be president.
Right.
And I think that she would have as good a shot at winning the primary as anybody in 4 years. And even if she didn't want to be president, you have to be pretty ambitious just to get to be vice president and run for president, just to have accomplished what she has.
Right.
And maybe we need to get Ash back on here. Can Kamala re-energize that group, or does it have to be a different messenger? I mean,
You know, talking to my wife about this issue and the black women in my life, I think it's possible, right? And it's possible because, we still believe, like, remember Barack's message, hope and change, right? Like we're still hoping for change, right? Even though he became president, has two amazingly clean
Yeah,
terms,
yeah.
we're still hoping for change, right? Because it just hasn't been enough when it comes to the entire over. Yeah, some black folks are doing really well. Don't get me wrong. Some black folk have persevered, figured it out, had parental guidance, got a break, figured it out, got it done. But the
But they're
numbers are
but they're
far
doing
too
worse today
few.
but they're doing worse today in the Trump administration, no matter how accomplished you
Absolutely.
are as a person of color. I mean,
Absolutely.
we've brought mainstream racism back into, injected it right back into the everyday, every situation, every moment life. Like, maybe
Yes.
it was always kind of there, but at least it'd been pushed out of like polite society. But
Right.
now everyone feels emboldened again to be like blatantly,
They got the permission structure.
blatantly
Yeah.
racist again. So
Yeah.
here we go.
So going back to what you said and the simplicity of the message, right? With DEI, well, all you have to do is come out on a stage in Southwest Atlanta. Go to one of our mega churches here, right? Go out to Pastor Jamal Bryant's church, who's leading up the Target Fast, and say, hey, folks, we understand the opposite of diversity, equity, inclusion, homogeneity, right? Exclusivity, right? And inequity. Right?
Yeah.
Like just those words. If you say what are the opposites of DEI, right? Homogeneity means you don't want anybody else around. You don't want a diverse crowd. You don't want diversity of thought. You don't want equity, right? Why would you not want those things? And say, folks, and Bernie and his masterful. I love the way Bernie communicates. He can explain to us what we can do and how we can go about getting a better life, getting a better slice of the American pie, getting to a better place to raise our Brock. I've said this to you, I know 1,000 times. We really want pretty much the same things that white families want, right? We want to live in a nice home, a safe area. We want to be able to educate our kids. We want our kids safe, right? We don't want to live next to a factory where we're going to have cancer in 15 years and three generations of our families are going to die from cancer, like Cancer Alley in Louisiana. We just want a better quality of life. And you know what? There are more than enough capable potential messengers, right, to get this done.
Who's
And
outside the system? Is it someone like a Killer Mike? I keep looking for people that are outside the system. I mean, I love that. I love that one guy, really both two of the guys in Tennessee that are just in the state house.
no, Justin Pearson, yeah.
They're great. They're good, great speakers.
Yes.
They're great message deliverers.
Yep.
I mean, I wish we'd get someone like from, the white side of the ledger. I mean, this is where I wish Buttigieg would like be riskier and just come out and say more shit. He's a little too measured.
Right.
Maybe Beto, he's really good at just
That was
saying
awesome.
shit. Like, has he just not been elevated enough? Is that his fault? Is that like I mean, I want people that aren't necessarily sitting in a political seat either. I mean,
Right.
I want everybody, right? I want it to become like a chorus. It doesn't have to be a solo act. It should be a chorus. But as much as we started to get this momentum of some people, really being aggressive, it's kind of petered out to being a little bit of the same people.
Right. And look, Beto was phenomenal in his governor's race. I mean, in his Senate race against Ted Cruz. We thought he was going to win.
I thought he
Like,
was going to win.
I thought
It
he was
was,
going to win. He was
it was,
masterful. Yeah, he was speaking Spanish. He was connecting with people. He was all over the state, crisscrossing the most ridiculous sized state ever, and really connecting with people. He went everywhere and he can still do the same thing. He
I mean,
doesn't
Texas.
have to be limited to Texas.
He doesn't have to be. He always stays in Texas, and he should move. He should move beyond. Unless, I mean, I know maybe he's looking to run there again. Um, maybe if he has that aspiration. But if not, like, I just feel like we just need louder voices that are outside of the system, and it can't
Right.
just be people who want to sit on a panel on CNN, right? Because no one's watching that shit anymore. Like that's just like bullshit.
It's a waste of time. It's a
Waste
waste
of
of time.
time. So that's just lost. I mean, I really feel like these quasi town halls and rallies is the method,
That's the
and
way to go.
and then have some clip it up into like the key points and make it like really palatable to the people who aren't going to sit there or aren't going to be there, but make sure
Hmm.
that they're getting the snippets and using the social media. And I think the people have to play the game differently. All right, but
By the way, Brock,
you're not even asking for that much. You're not asking for
no,
the full-throated,
I'm trying to be
we're,
realistic.
we're going to change everything, anti-racism. You're not even asking for people to go that hard. Just
Right.
like make it fair and and
Give us
and
some
argue
opportunities.
that you're going to push policies that are going to improve quality of life.
Right. Let's
Okay.
start there. Let's start there. And then we can have better, more focused, more refined discussions. We can move to social justice. We can move to sentencing reform. We can move to getting rid of once and for all mass incarceration and prison for profit. We can do those things down the road, but in the meantime, come talk to us about being the bottom rung on the ladder, right? Because we've watched so many immigrants come here and find so much success, and we can't get SBA loans. We can't get bank loans. We don't own the bodegas in our communities. Those are owned by Asian families, right? They're owned by South Asian families. Why can't we get any of those store loans?
Mhm.
Right? We can add and subtract. I mean, come on, like it doesn't make sense. Help us, right, be able to support ourselves. Because when we had it, when we go back to Black Wall Street, you didn't want us to have it and you burned it down and you murdered us and now we can't talk about it. So I know there's still much more to go here. We've been on. It's a Friday night. Everybody's busy. I know you're tied up, but we got to continue this conversation. And I want to hear from you. What it's going to take to get your brethren, our former teammates, active.
Comfortable. Yeah, the really
Yeah.
comfortable, the really comfortable American,
Right.
um, more riled up. I thought you
Yes.
were going to ask me what's going to get me back out there because I'm kind of like I don't want to go. I loved the last march I went to. I was incredibly impressed. I don't want to go do that again, right? I don't need to. I don't want to do that again and
I
just
get
keep
it.
showing numbers. Like I want to see a different crowd there. I want to see a higher energy crowd there. I want to go to a march that has black and brown people there. I want to go to a more diverse march that's
Right.
higher energy. I want it to be angrier. So that may sound bad and racist, like, oh, I need angry black people to come to make it angrier, right? Because it was a little too polite. But I want white people to take the gloves off a bit more,
No
right?
doubt.
Because as we're asking the politicians to do, right? Stop with the norms and the politeness, but I feel like there has to be, really an appeal to black and brown people. And maybe it has to come from the grassroots level. Hey, we need you out there.
Yeah.
Almost like a courtship,
Right.
and if
But
maybe it
see,
comes from the ground up, the politicians will catch on and
yes,
then they'll think, oh, this is a good thing for us to be doing because that's where the people are. So
Brock,
maybe it has.
if I'm indivisible, I'm on the horn with Don Lemon, Joy Reid, Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, all the people shunned by the system, right? Roland Martin, right? Black influencers who have a voice that Black people listen to and respect and have seen knocked off their perch because of race. I mean, why can't Indivisible get Joy Reid out? and say, hey, Joy, let's start promoting this march on the
Good
19th,
idea. Yeah, yeah.
right?
And
Let's get some of these Black voices as a part of Indivisible.
as a part of it, if they're willing to do it,
Yes.
because yeah, I mean, then they have to sort of cross the line from media to political, but I think most of them have already, right?
Yeah.
Because now that they're independent journalists and not a part of the mainstream media, I think they're all a little unleashed, right?
Yes.
I think that's a great idea. That's a good idea. Because I was going to ask, is this something like we got to lean on Malcolm Kenyatta to do? Because who's scheduling these things, right? And how come they're
Right.
not being scheduled in any cities? Why is this just a disaffected MAGA white voter initiative? I understand
Right.
why. I think they can peel those voters off, but it's going to take both. You got to
Right.
It's Stacey Abrams' idea of re-energizing, get more people out to vote, and peeling off a few disaffected MAGA voters and some independents. And that's a voting block, but we need it way before voting, right? Like we need a protest block. Like we
No doubt.
need who's protesting, because we can't wait fucking 2 years. God
No.
forbid we ain't waiting 4 years. This shit's going to hell in a handbasket. We didn't even get to the shit that's going on with DOJ and the fact that we refuse to, even when the Supreme Court says get guys out of fucking El Salvador
El
prison.
Salvador. Right.
DOJ is trying to skirt it. That's maybe a discussion for tomorrow. Let's give that story 24 more hours to see where it goes.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, buddy. Have a great Friday night.
All
Great
right.
talking to you.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
All right, my
Take care.
friend. See you soon.